Hey, I'm David Pyle. I'm an artist. And in fact, I started making art, started drawing every day when I was in fourth grade, probably like a lot of young people. But I've kept it up and I've kept doing that like every day since. And I became an artist. And then I went to work doing things like making art materials, making paints. I worked for a manufacturer that actually makes this stuff. And then I became a publisher with different magazines and doing other things where we talked about art making. And then I got to teach about this stuff. And what I've wanted to do for a long time is to tell these stories for young people about how art is not only a great way to explore making stuff, but it's a great way to learn about all kinds of other things. So I'm going to tell a story today. We're going to talk about some paintings, we're going to talk about some science, and here we go. So first, I'm going to talk about this painting. This is one of my favorite paintings. This is a watercolor by a guy named John Singer Sargent, who is a mind-blowing artist, OMG. And there's some things I love about this painting. One of the things is how the viewer comes into the painting with the angle of these guys' legs. And there's this rhythm with how the legs carry you into the painting, and then the light to the dark and the color and oh, speaking of color, look at that bright red on those pants. So where do you think that color came from? I'm going to tell you. Well, that color is a color called carmine. And where it comes from is, you see this little guy up here? That's a bug called a cochineal beetle. And cochineal beetles grow or live indigenously in Central America. And they thrive on prickly pear cactus. You see this picture of a prickly pear cactus, and those white bits, that's not snow. That's called carminic acid. And the carminic acid is produced by the female cochineal beetle, and it's that carminic acid that makes that incredible color. And you know who first figured that out? These guys, the Aztecs. And here's a couple of Aztec fighters in like the 14th or 15th century whacking on each other. And one of them is about to have a really bad day. But you notice the cape for one of them and the shield, that bright red color came from making paint, making dye from cochineal beetles. Here's another example of things they did. This is a tapestry that was woven with things that had been dyed with the colorant of carmine from those cochineal beetles. And you know what happened with those cochineal beetles and with carmine and with that pigment, that colorant, is, well, about the 15th century or so, maybe a little later, the Spaniards from Europe invaded Central America. And they found some amazing things. They found gold, they found treasures of all different kinds, they found the Aztec peoples, and then they also found that the Aztecs had figured out this amazing way to make this color that nobody else had been able to figure out in Europe. So, in fact, that became so valuable that not only did the Spaniards start taking away all the gold, they also started taking away the carmine and the tools and the materials needed to make that color. And then who came on? Army hearties, it's time for the pirates to arrive. So pirates started swooping in on these Spanish galleons. They'd take away the gold, and they also took away this color because they'd never seen anything like it. And the color was used later by the British to make the British redcoats. The color was used later to make the American flag by Betsy Ross. And it also got used consistently by different artists. Here's another one of my favorite artists. I love this painting, this watercolor by Winslow Homer. There's this rhythm, this magic quality to the carmine leaves that are here behind this wall. Absolutely stunning. So it's not just the pigment that makes these things, it's how they're made. And that's what we're going to show next. Wouldn't it be cool if I could actually show you how carmine is made from cochineal beetles? And you know what I have here? There's some bugs. Let's see. Let's make certain we get this focused. There we go. Bingo. Got it. Now, that's some carmine. Those are dried carmine. No, excuse me, dried cochineal beetles. And I'm going to crush them. Crush. We're getting a bit of a powder. You can start to see a little bit of red there. Now, an interesting thing to note is that it's only the female beetles that make the carminic acid, as we talked about. It's only the female beetles that make the carminic acid that allows for this color. So the females are far more brilliant than the males. And, you can take from that anything that you'd like. Now, I'm going to load my brush with water. Got a great watercolor brush and dive in. Whoa. Whoa, look at that. Red color from bugs. Now, as you look at this, oh, what's starting to happen? It started out red, but now it's starting to turn. It's starting to go gray. It's starting to go brown. Why is that? I'm going to show you. If you could dive into a drop of water and get really, really microscopic, this is what you'd see. You'd see these big beach ball floating things. Actually, those are water molecules. They actually look maybe a little bit like Mickey Mouse. And water molecules hang together in a unique way to create a structure by virtue of something that's called hydrogen bonding. We can talk more about that later. I've got great ways to help you understand exactly what hydrogen bonding does in water. But it creates this structure. And when light goes through that structure, it bounces around in a particular way. And it bounces off, in this case, it bounces off the colorant. It bounces off the carbonic acid, the cochineal, and bounces the light back out at a specific frequency or a specific wavelength, a specific way of vibrating that our eyes see as red. When we hit this first with the water, that's what was happening. The light was bouncing through the water, bouncing off the carmine and coming back out. And now the water has absorbed into the paper. A little bit of it has evaporated out. And what we have now is something that's kind of gray and muddy. But if we add a little bit of what's called gum arabic comes out of trees. It's kind of like sap. If we add a little bit of gum arabic and glycerin, which is something to keep it moist, I'm going to put this back on. Gum arabic is something that is typically used in making watercolor, and it stays intact. It'll stay in solution with the cochineal. And that's one way, in a very simple way of explaining it, how you make carmine color for paint. I wanted to share this because I love the fact that making art is a great way to not only make art and make cool stuff, but it's a fabulous way to explore other ideas and other topics and other things that you can know about, and things that when you know about them, it's really fun because you can think about how it fits in your world and fits in your life. So that's one story. That's a story about cochineal beetles and carmine and where it came from and how it's used in lots of different ways. But there's lots of other stories too. And I'd love to share them all with you. Until next time.